So you get on a session with your client and they mention, as you set the agreement with them, that they have a big decision to be made. Maybe it is they are considering moving, maybe within their city, within their country, within the world somewhere. They're going to be looking to move or not. They're wondering whether or not they should have that difficult conversation with their direct report, their peer, their manager, their skip level boss, their spouse, their partner. They're considering asking for a raise or pursuing a promotion and partnering with their leader on how to get there. That idea of having a conversation and negotiation around a raise and promotion, that's scary to them, and they're not sure if they want to take that course. Perhaps they're considering asking for a role change within their organization, making a job transition outside of that company, or considering an overall career transition, looking at almost reinvent themselves. And maybe a decision that goes along those lines is, should I go back to school or not? There are so many decisions that can be made. And one of the main uses of coaches and coaching is to help with decision making. Oftentimes in my coaching, I would have to say pretty much every coaching engagement will have some mix of decision-making sessions and then behavior change sessions and planning and action sessions where it's a little bit more tactical. And in all of these things, we, as coaches, we want to provide the most value and support as best we can through exploring the significance of the change, the significance of the decision. And that is admirable, and it is very important as part of our function as coaches. However, there are a couple of dangers that can creep in to coaching around decision making that is very important for us to surface here as we consider how to begin coaching around decision making with this video and a few videos following for this week's training. So danger number one around coaching around decision making is for the coach to go into advice giving mode. This is especially true in decision-making coaching, where it's always a bit of a danger. It's always a bit of a risk for a coach to offer suggestions and offer advice. Anytime we do that, we always need to couch that within a sense of, hey, there's a suggestion I might have here, but it's only going to be, my perspective. I'd like to share it. Would that be okay? Here's a suggestion. What are your thoughts? How do you see this possibly helping you? And so on. That's not ideal to do very often within a coaching session or a coaching engagement. But it is almost 100% true within coaching around decision making that the coach needs to completely throttle and pause any suggestions, any advice giving. And the reason is, it is a very serious thing to become the responsible party of the decision, this life decision that needs to be made. When a coach provides advice, it is almost as if they are rescuing the person from the difficulty of making their own choice. And a coach is not hired to take that responsibility upon themselves. Instead, we are hired to help a person own their decisions and to feel as if it is truly their own, so they can have confidence in their ability to follow through with this decision and to make further difficult decisions in their lives past the coaching engagement. So danger number one is the coach as an advisor. And we want to be very careful not to step into that role when it comes to decision making. Now, when I say advisor, it's not suggesting things that we could explore, questions that could be asked, but instead offering what I might do if I were you, what my decision would be if I were in your shoes, because we are not in their shoes. And while that trick can work in some ways with other types of coaching or in coaching around other things, when we offer that type of coaching in decision making, we can very easily step into the territory of owning that person's decision and taking away their ability to make their own choice. But danger number two is somewhat similar and yet subtle in how it can creep into coaching. Most coaches recognize the value of avoiding advice giving within decision making. But almost as dangerous is when a coach coaches around decision making using their standard or default mental framework. Now, what do I mean by that? How do you tend to make decisions? For me, it is trying to weigh things logically. I try to almost completely set aside the emotional side of things when I'm making a decision. And I really try to look at a decision almost in a data way. Like, what are all the data points in play, the trade-offs that are in play, and if we do this, these are the ramifications and the data points on this side. These are the ramification data points. So clearly, A or B needs to be my decision. It sounds great, and yet, if I get into a coaching session and the client says, "Hey, I'd like you to help me make a decision," and I go with logic-based questions, pros, cons, weigh these as data points, blah, 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 and lead this client through my default decision-making framework. In some ways, my mental framework for decision-making is helping make that decision for the client. It's almost taking partial ownership of that decision. Now, this is a bit like, well, then what do we do type of scenario as I share this. And I think that's it's mainly important to highlight that there is a danger if the coach isn't going in to a session around decision making with their eyes open. There's a danger if the coach goes in and says that their default, considering just the facts or considering the intuition side or considering the emotional side or whatever that default might be, if the coach is only going with that framework, then the coaching around the decision is going to be lopsided. It's going to be coach focused rather than client focused. Because if I'm coaching someone who appreciates making a decision based upon the way that decision makes them feel today and the way that decision will sit with them in the next 5 years, and I go with more of a logic-based approach, then my approach, it will help, but it'll also be partially my decision. So instead, the voice of the coach should be most quiet within decision-making coaching. The voice of the coach needs to be most quiet in decision-making coaching. We want to make sure that the way we coach around decision-making is helping the person understand what they really want according to the way they want to make decisions. And it's a messy process, but that is exactly what the coach is there for. The coach is there not only to help the person make the decision, but to help the person make a decision that they can feel comfortable with beyond the session. We don't want to create this sense of buyer's remorse where the coach is, through advice or through just using the coach's own framework, mental framework, after they do that coaching session, they say they made the decision afterwards, and after some extra reflection for a day or two, they're like, it's still not sitting well with me. I don't feel comfortable with this. After coaching around a decision, the client should have a sense of how to settle on what they really want. That takes effort on their side. The coach is helping their voice, the client's voice, be heard, be internalized, and to validate whichever path they are going to choose. So, a core question as we begin this session on decision making is, how does this person, this client, this human being, how do they want to make decisions in the first place? That's more of the starting point. And from there, we help the person grow, not only make a one-time decision. I hope this is helpful as a foundation for decision-making coaching. We'll be looking at some other things, some methods, some elements of coaching around decisions, and also how to visualize or create frameworks that are useful within decision-making coaching. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coaching. See you next time.